Hey, what's up guys, Aaron here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2018 career mode, episode number 61 today for the Mexican Grand Prix in Season 3. If you guys did miss the USA one uploaded yesterday, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But heading into this, then obviously the gap has been closing and closing in the Drivers' Championship now, and it's now only 11 points between myself and Fernando Alonso. And looking at the last three races, Mexico, Brazil, and Abu Dhabi, this one will be our best chance to get a good result over Alonso, because Brazil, I'm going to be pretty poor as I was maybe at USA, and then Abu Dhabi can go either way depending on the tyre wear, whereas Mexico is a guaranteed race where I feel I can probably try and take the fight to Alonso and outperform him. But you can see for everyone on the chart now, on the performance data there, you can see it looks like everyone is now in that phase of the season where they are now saving resource points for adapting parts for that R&D reset from Season 3 to Season 4. Of course, the chassis and the aero gets reset. We did a bit of adapting last episode at the end of it, so you would have seen what I've done so far for McLaren, but clearly at the very end of the episode you saw that even if you have a lot of points, it actually still is not enough to save everything. So it is going to be very intriguing what the AI teams save for themselves. But moving back to Mexico, going into this episode feeling confident, but the engine is starting to wear out quite a fair bit. You can see all the components on our car are starting to wear, but specifically, especially the MGU-K and the internal combustion engine. So that's going to be a worry and a thought maybe in the race if it affects us, but for now we don't need to take any engine penalties, but there might be an instance where you might have to take a penalty at Brazil or Abu Dhabi maybe, because especially that MGU-K, I only obviously have two for the season and both are very worn out at 60% over, so we'll have to watch out for that in the race and see how that plays into the race pace with the ERS deployment. But let's go on to Saturday then and try and see what we can do over one lap there on Saturday.
Welcome to qualifying here in Mexico, where the cars will be going out on track very shortly and battling it out to secure pole for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Looking at this field today, Ants, do you think we're going to see anyone take a chance, maybe run the harder of the available compounds and save some of the grippy tyres for the race tomorrow?
Well, I'd be surprised in all honesty. It's only the front runners that really have the pace to get away with that, and even then, at the end of the day, it's a big risk. Track position is the most important thing, and it's rarely worth sacrificing for a slightly more optimal strategy in the race, so I doubt we're going to see anyone trying it. I have been wrong before though. We certainly do see some risky decisions every now and then, and it's a gamble that's sometimes worth taking. But if it were me in the car, I would want to be on the fastest tyre for my qualifying lap, without a doubt.
So it'll be a pretty straightforward time in Q1 then, the first flying lap then in Mexico through the last corner, and I'm feeling already pretty damn good. You know, the car is feeling very planted through Sector 2 where you've got the the S section, but then on the straights it's feeling pretty powerful. Obviously relative to the other cars it seems like it's going pretty well because Alonso's up in P2 and myself P5, so the car felt really stable, which is sometimes an issue here at Mexico because obviously it's such a high circuit in terms of the elevation where we are in Mexico is so high that the air in real life is so thin that you have to run a lot more downforce than you actually think you would at a circuit like Mexico with long back straights and main straights. And in the game I almost feel like they've modeled it kind of like that, because I always feel so unstable with the car when I go lower aero and usually have to run quite high aero, but I've gotten away with about 6.5 I think on the front and the rear, and it's feeling really good in all sectors. And you saw there both of us were high up in Q1. In Q2 we're a little bit slower relative to the rest of the grid, but we still make it through in P9. What surprised me though was Perez was fastest in Q1, then he just wasn't anywhere in Q2, and Magnussen was actually looking very good up there, as well as Sebastian Vettel on the Ferrari car, so that was very odd indeed. So we go into Q3 then, a bit of an unknown situation of where everyone's going to be in the order, but obviously I'm just trying to go as fast as we can and hopefully beat Fernando Alonso at least on the grid. And we're on our first flying lap then, and it's not the best lap, but it's a decent one enough. You know, we're a little bit off Alonso and I know where I can gain time. It's just about really putting all the sectors together really, and not hopefully buckling under the pressure and trying to do the job we've come here to do, which is try and stop Alonso's momentum. Obviously he's been on absolute Goliath tear of wins since the Russian Grand Prix, and we need to stop him in his tracks this weekend specifically, because Brazil I definitely have no chance in hell of stopping him probably if he's going to be good around Sao Paulo, but around here I can try it and across the line, and we are going to be on pole position. So it's a very good Saturday for us. It's our second pole technically, but obviously I didn't actually start on pole in Japan even though I got a pole at Japan, so it's our first actual pole position that will be starting there on the front row on the grid on Sunday. But surprised to be honest, to say the least, that Sebastian Vettel was the one who joins me in second place. You can see how close it was between me and Seb. Really nice to see actually that my future teammate in Season 4 is right there with me. So kind of nice and kind of maybe foreshadowing the future, maybe, huh? But Ocon in third place and then Alonso P4. So Ocon and Vettel do me a solid at pushing Alonso down the grid. That'll be really helpful going to Sunday. So we've done the first part of the job. That's half of it done. Second half coming up for Sunday.
Formula One may have been absent from Mexico for 23 years, but after 2015's triumphant return, it was as if we'd never been away. In Mexico, a Grand Prix is more than just a race. It's a celebration of speed and of bravery. There's nothing quite like the atmosphere in the stadium today. They'll be drowning out the cars with their noise as they make their way through on lap 1. At 2,285 metres above sea level, the thin air of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez poses a unique challenge, not just to a driver's skill, but to the efficiency of their engines as well. 17 corners make up a lap of this 2.6-mile circuit, and you can expect incredible speeds in excess of 220 miles per hour, and overtaking too into the hard braking zones of turns 1 and turn 4. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Now, I want to ask you about Romain Grosjean. As ever, the threat of unreliability is never far away, and indeed they'll be starting out of position today due to a power unit component change. So it's going to be a difficult task to move forward from there.
Everyone has to deal with penalties or reliability issues from time to time throughout their career. You just have to suck up the pain and get on with the job at hand. Today isn't about performing a miracle to put the car back where it should be. It's about effective damage limitation.
We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. The engineer lines up on pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Ocon, Magnussen, Pierre Gasly and Verstappen, Ricciardo, Alonso, Perez and Nico Hülkenberg, Hartley, Bottas, Marcus Ericsson and Raikkonen, Leclerc, Hamilton, Romain Grosjean. They've taken a grid penalty, and Lance Stroll, Sirotkin and Carlos Sainz starts from the back of the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So not only are we on pole position, but if you watch the opening grid sequence there, you would have seen Alonso also has some grid penalties here. So it's actually maybe tick for tack. You know, obviously I talked about it just before then. I might have to say grid penalties at Brazil, Abu Dhabi. So it's kind of going to be 1 for 1 there in terms of fairness. So Alonso's taking his penalties now, and we'll have a fresher engine for this race potentially. So let's see how he recovers from that lower position than P4. But for us, we're still here on pole. No issues for us here for this race at least. And we can just stare into pretty much nothing apart from the 5 red lights here. It's going to be a 2-stop Hypersoft to 2 sets of ultras. That's been the fastest way around this circuit for me, personally, in my opinion. No rain forecast, just going to be a kind of sunny race to overcast conditions. But let's get into this then. From pole position for the very first time in an F1 2018 career mode race to 5 red lights to the Mexican Grand Prix. And we're underway for 36 laps around this circuit. And we pull to the right immediately to try and block off Sebastian Vettel as he gets a good getaway there in second and third gear. Initially, I got a good launch from first, but then bogged down a little bit in the gears afterwards. But into turn 1, obviously a long run to the line, but we do make it through in P1 unscathed. Vettel second place still, Ocon third. He gave a bit of pressure, the Frenchman, to the German, but it's fine. They remain put like that, and I don't know where Alonso is quite yet, but it looks like he's getting stuck in, maybe already trying to overtake some people. Let's take a look at a quick replay then and see how Fernando went on. So here he is now behind both Red Bull cars after the grid penalties got applied, and onto the Toro Rosso, Pierre Gasly. It's a good getaway then from Fernando. Good overtake then on 1 and 2 Red Bull cars, so already 2 positions taken. And look at that lovely scene of nearly 4 wide almost into turn 1. You can see I do well to just stick to the inside there. Good defensive work from myself, as we can see from on board of Alonso. And then Alonso in the middle of the Red Bull and Toro Rosso gets past the Red Bull and finishes off the move, but he's still side by side then with Pierre Gasly. It's P2, like we said, is Vettel, P3 Ocon, and P4 is Kevin Magnussen. Alonso trying to make it P5 for himself and trying to desperately try and get up to that P4 as quick as he can that he deserved to be at, obviously, from Saturday, but had to go down the order due to engine penalties, or at least some sort of one component change, I would guess, as Alonso now on the outside, still fighting the Frenchman in the Toro Rosso really hard. Obviously, we saw the Toro Rossos were very good last race, and they were a bit of a blockade for myself, but this time round in Mexico, they're a blockade for Alonso, but Alonso does make his way through eventually up into P5. But as we move back to our POV then, onto lap 3, setting a purple lap time there, and so all's well in my world. The only thing I'm really monitoring is this engine wear and also the tyre wear, just trying to make sure obviously I can take these hypersofts as long as I need to make the 2-stop work with the 2 ultra soft tyres, and also just looking at that engine wear, seeing if the MGU-K is going to wear out anymore, because obviously the more I use higher ERS deployment modes, the more that wears, so I just want to be wary of that. You know, if there's anything I can do to maybe manage it a little bit better, I will try that. And you know, that's the kind of luxury of being in first place. You can kind of manage your entire race, because everyone else behind you has to try and overtake you if they don't want to stick to your pace. So I'm going to definitely take it with a bit of a controlled mannerism here, as we now watch Alonso being frustratingly, I would say, stuck behind Magnussen and Ocon that go side by side, and it's a good overtake for Magnussen on Ocon then. But a bit of contact made between Magnussen on the rear end, so Alonso now has been invited to maybe have a look, as Ocon is really off centre there. You saw the racing line difference into this S section. Really nice overhead camera shows you the difference in the racing line there, and Ocon definitely compromised himself into the entry. And now here goes Alonso with a great run. Will he dive down the inside? It's going to be a beautiful little move there. Lovely textbook stuff, and that looked amazing from that camera shot. And so Alonso swings through up into P4, Magnussen P3, Vettel P2, and myself still very much in P1. But you can see there a bit of a squirm on the rear end. The tyre wear is kicking in on lap 7, and so you know what, I'm going to come in probably on this lap now 2 laps earlier than my default says. You know, lap 9, but we're going to do it again. We did it pretty much, we've been doing that lately quite a lot actually, the last 2-3 races. We've been coming in a lot earlier on our first stint, and it's really because, again, the tyre carcass temperature there, you can see on the rear ends, are really hot there. Yellow, completely brick yellow on the heads-up display. So I don't know what it is lately. I think maybe I'm being a bit too aggressive with my setups lately. Maybe my setups were a bit more conservative in the first half of the season, because I never had any of those tyre issues in the first half. Maybe it's because, you know, that's a great thing about, you know, fighting Alonso so hard here, and, you know, the same piece of machinery, and us two being so, you know, far ahead of the entire grid. It really is like a Mercedes 2014 thing, where we're pushing each other so hard, and he's specifically pushing me so hard that I'm having to use more aggressive setups to try and find time there out on track over 1 lap pace and in the race. But that also deteriorates my tyre wear in a way. So you've got this really nice dynamic of Alonso's really giving me a good fight there. It's good to see. Obviously it's been a long while since an AI teammate's really been this strong against myself, and I'm actually genuinely scared about him coming and ruining the entire endeavour of this championship, as he now goes and overtakes Magnussen now on the outside there. Can K-Mag, my old teammate, do anything to stop him? No, he can't. And so Alonso is going to be up into first place of this Grand Prix, of course, because Vettel pit in with myself. So, you know, I said it time and time again, even if Alonso gets pushed down the order, eventually his alien-like pace will come and shine through. And so he's on his bike now, and now he can try and stretch those legs and try and see what he can do to, you know, erode down the lead that myself and Vettel have to him in P1 and P2 as we go and overtake very easily that Williams car in the S section and try and lose a little time as we can, as Vettel also gets past. And you can see up ahead a fight between Marcus Ericsson and Hamilton. Surprisingly, Ericsson was having a go there at Hamilton, so very odd how the mighty fall. Ready, Mercedes now struggling to keep behind, or keep ahead of a Sauber rather. And now as we move on to the main straight on lap 10, we do re-overtake Alonso. Obviously, thankfully, he goes behind myself and Vettel. Looking to overtake now both Hamilton and Ericsson in one foul swoop on the right-hand side, down the inside then of the Swede. Just about make the apex there, and he keeps it in tow, to be fair. So the Sauber is a bit of work to actually overtake, but we do get past that eventually up into P6. And Ericsson is actually, whilst we overtook him, Ericsson did actually overtake Hamilton there. So the Mercedes car really is absolutely piss poor these days. I mean, Vettel's already on the back of him there. Alonso right up the back of Vettel though. So you would say it's only a matter of time before Alonso probably gets up into what would be a net P2, of course, once all these guys who are going longer on their stints shuffle out. There goes Vettel then overtaking Ericsson. He's already overtaken Hamilton, clearly, that we missed that. And Alonso's now overtaking Hamilton as well. Down the inside, you've got the Force Indias not too far away, but there's a whole gaggle of cars there behind that first Force India of Ocon, I imagine, and then Perez behind. So obviously the home favourite, Perez, will want to try and do well. You can see a Mexican flag right in the background there. So we'll see how that progresses for him. But at the moment, Vettel now cleanly past Ericsson, and now Alonso trying the same thing on the outside, and he will make that very simply. And so now it is Vettel up into P3, Alonso P4, I'm in P2, chasing after one final car to overtake in P1, and that is actually going to be the other Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas. So clearly the Mercedes car is trying a bit of a different contra strategy these days. You know, they're a slower car, they're a slower team, so they have to try something different. So they're going going for a one-stop potentially, I don't know, on ultras to super soft tyres, you never know. But we go down the inside very simply into the stadium section, and we're up into P1 once more. Vettel will obviously trickle into P2, and the same for Alonso in P3. So Alonso's already on the podium, and he's only got one place to make up, and then he's in P2, and it'll be another 1-2 for McLaren. But obviously, I'm hoping that I can take this through to the finish and be the one in first place this time. But you can see there, Alonso with a purple lap time. Once he's got a sniff of clean air, he is so quick. And here he goes now, chasing after Sebastian Vettel. And this is going to be a very easy pass for him, I think. Down the inside, DRS open, ERS deploying, and he's up into what will eventually be P2. It's P3 right now because the Mercedes is there, but it will be P2. And now he's got all clean air to run in. So, like I said, as much as I'm pushing hard, trying to improve my laps and trying to be consistent, Alonso has just got the quick fire pace. Another purple lap there on lap 13. You can see I'm looking on my right hand side on the heads-up display. I'm a little bit worried that MGUK is becoming yellower and yellower. I mean, that's not great English, but it's becoming more yellow by the minute, basically. That's better English in this race now. So that means I'm wearing it too much out by deploying too much ERS, but I need to if I'm trying to keep ahead of Alonso, because by the time we get to lap 15, only 2 laps after, and Alonso is already in the back of us now for P1. He'll have DRS as we cross the line now for another lap in this Grand Prix. Lap 16, 20 laps to go, and we squeeze Alonso very aggressively to the right hand side there, trying to force him off on the right and trying to then move back to the left hand side to take the corner a little bit better than he can and try and put him off as best we can, because of course all I had to defend there with was fuel and ERS. I had to try something, so trying to squeeze him to the right hand side and then move back to the left was my best bet there, and so far it's worked through the first chicane. But there goes Alonso now again on the outside once more, defending to the inside. But Alonso, really good swing around the outside. He has it actually now by a whole car width there. I try my best to hang it around the outside of the next double right hander, but you can see I go way too deep there and just was way too optimistic, and so Alonso is up into P1, but we're not going to give up, and straight away now into the main stadium section. Alonso with a huge lockup, a very uncharacteristic mistake there from my teammate, and so he's able to invite us to go side by side through the last couple of corners there. You can see the crowd must be going absolutely berserk at this moment, watching a race lead being fought by 2 McLarens there, and we go through on the inside the final corner back up into first place. But Alonso again will have DRS. We break the toe early this time on the right hand side, and this time we find ourselves on the right, Alonso on the left, but we'll have the inside line now for turn 1. We move back to the middle of the circuit, try and squeeze him into the racing line and try and force him a little bit wide if we can into the apex there. Late break, and we do keep it in P1. Really slow then on the next apex there, down to first gear momentarily, try and slow the thing down and make sure we park it on the apex to slow him down on purpose. And we've actually slowed each other down so much that Sebastian Vettel is right there in P3, right up the gearbox of Alonso. So if we're not careful, the Ferrari may also join this fight, as again Alonso has a little peek around the outside, but this time I've got the better inside racing line for this part of the circuit, so I can remain in P1 as we move now on to lap 18. And once again Alonso will have a pop maybe with DRS. Again we're trying to break the toe, but Alonso this time round does better to keep with us in the slipstream. Vettel also closing up, and here we go. You can see just there peeking behind that rear end of Alonso's McLaren, gets closer and closer, but again into turn 1 we are able to make the brakes on. And this time though, crucially, Vettel's round the outside of Alonso. I don't know what went on there, but Alonso's made some sort of mistake into turn 1, and Vettel now surprising up into P2, and he does me a massive favour there. And so it's just like we were in qualifying, myself in P1, Vettel P2, and Alonso's pushed down to P3 now, just ahead of the 2 Force Indies of Sergio Perez and Esteban Ocon respectively then. And so that gives us a little bit of breathing room maybe to get away in this Grand Prix now, away from the Ferrari car. But as we move on now 3 laps later on to lap 21, at this stage Vettel now has pit in already for an early second pit stop, then has left myself, Alonso and the 2 Force Indies to stay out 3 laps after he overtook the Spaniard. So he's trying to get in some clean air maybe and try and make an undercut work on not only Alonso but also myself potentially. But I need to cover off Alonso. I can't worry about Vettel at this stage of the race. But into the right-hander then, Alonso with the biggest dive bomb in the world actually there on the inside. Very surprised by that. That completely caught me out and definitely spooked me a little bit into the apex. And so Alonso really trying to hustle and harry me now as we get to the end stages of this stint. And on the right and the last corner now, Alonso will have a very good run as well as those Force Indias. So here we go now once again down this straight, trying to break the toe, weaving around a little bit on the left-hand side. Alonso will go to the inside then with DRS. The Force India comes accelerator knots, but gets boxed in. So the Frenchman of Ocon tried to make something work. Alonso's on the inside, but he's gone across the curbing. He's tapped Ocon. We've gone round the outside of him, and we've somehow found room to try and go back down the inside of Alonso to get first place back. It looked like Alonso had that done and dusted into turn 1, but Ocon making contact with him helped out a little bit there. And so we're on the outside as the two Force Indias are neck and neck as well for P3 and P4, and we're still somehow got our nose into the inside of Alonso, and this fight is still going on 7 laps after when it started on lap 15. And now Alonso, will he have the traction to make it down the inside? Yes, he will, and he dives it down the inside. We break early. We switch back move on the left-hand side now. We've got the inside line. Again, Alonso comes through. Again, we're going to switch it to the other side of the circuit once more. So we did 2 switches to 2 different sides of the circuit in the middle of the S section there to get back into first place. Alonso with a horrendous lock-up then into that corner, and he's going to remain in P2, and we're going to come straight in now on this lap 22. We've done good enough work to stretch these tyres now. We've got 14 laps remaining on this next stint. We did 14 on these tyres, so I wanted to keep it symmetrical. That's why I went as long as I did, basically. But Alonso goes on for even longer on lap 23 then, but we come in along with, I think that's Sergio Perez, I want to say, maybe, or it might be Ocon, I can't quite tell. Their helmets are way too similar, but we come in then for a set of ultra soft tyres, and so, wow, that's such a big scrap. That might be a bigger fight than the one we had at Japan, I think, and that was already quite a hectic fight at Suzuka, myself and Alonso. But it's absolutely fantastic. You can see what it really means for both of us. You know, the title is literally on the line with these 3 last races. And for me, like I said, I think Vettel's jumped us potentially with this massive undercut, but I basically can't care about that. I have to cover off Alonso. Getting ahead of Alonso is more important than trying to jump Vettel or keep ahead of Vettel. And along with that now, it means we have to try and get past Verstappen straight away on this left-hander. It's a big old dive bomb once again, and Verstappen literally locks up straight away as I go down the inside. So you know what? That's the psychological advantage there against Verstappen. I dive bombed him from hell and back at the USA Grand Prix, if you remember that from last episode. And so what did I say? You sometimes mentally break drivers if they know that you're going to make those kind of moves and you're capable of actually making it stick. And so Verstappen straight away, I don't think it's any coincidence, as soon as I made the dive and started braking, Verstappen locks up and just got scared off the circuit almost by myself. So good overtake there to get ahead of Alonso. And even better for me is Alonso there got held up in the pit lane by the Force India team. And so Alonso has been jumped by the Force Indias. We go across there, that blur of orange, we're past Force India. And not only will Alonso get jumped by the Force India, he also gets jumped by the Haas of Magnussen, and also the Red Bull there of Daniel Ricciardo, I think that is, or Verstappen. No, it's Verstappen, as he locks up into turn 1, and he's just only ahead of that second Force India car. So that's Perez ahead of Magnussen, Verstappen, Alonso, and then Ocon. So that is fantastic news. Alonso is 3 cars behind us now, and so I can worry a lot less now. I can basically just try and do my best job, obviously try and overtake the cars ahead of us, because I've got the pace to try and catch them, but at the same time it's a bit of stress relief that I don't need to worry too much. But you can see, setting a purple lap time, I've got some pace in this car. It's just the fact that the stress is a little bit less now that I know Alonso is further down the order. But we're going to use that race pace then to catch up then to this massive scrap going on between Magnussen, Ricciardo and Pierre Gasly, with 10 laps to go in this Grand Prix over P2, 3 and 4. Ricciardo side by side there with Magnussen, and with Gasly doing a fantastic job on the Toro Rosso to be in P2 right now. You can see in the minimap there, confirmation that Vettel is the one leading the Grand Prix. So fair play, Vettel's done a fantastic job to make that undercut work, and he saw that me and Alonso and the Force Indians were fighting way too much for his own good. So fair enough. But like I said, I need to cover off Alonso, so I had to kind of give up maybe the race victory here. But we're going to go down the inside of Ricciardo and try and at least maybe get up into P2 maximum here today, down the inside of the Aussie man. And now up ahead is Magnussen and Gasly for the taking. So if we can get P2, I'll still be massively happy with that, because that will be so many points ahead of Alonso if he gets stuck still down behind those 2 Force Indias, Verstappen, and also the other Haas of Grosjean now. And so now we go around the outside of Magnussen, and we are going to try and pull this off. It nearly didn't work there in the middle of the apex, but into the next corner, our left-hander squeeze him out, and we just about do that. He's got nose in still, but then there we go, last corner, got it done, and we're up into P3, and we'll move swiftly on now to a very overcast Mexican Grand Prix on lap 31, and we'll try and close up on Pierre Gasly, DRS wide open. Perez now is up into P4, so that Force India has been an absolute rocket ship and is overtaking the cars behind me, and we fly past Pierre Gasly and the Toro Rosso Honda car, and we're up into P2 of this Grand Prix. But on to lap 32 then. Vettel is only a couple of seconds ahead of us, so we could maybe try and catch him maybe. So I said maybe we give up the win. You know what? Never say never, as Alonso sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix, so maybe he's overtaken some cars there. So that gives me the motivation inside this cockpit now to push as hard as I can to maybe catch up to Vettel and try and go for this race victory still in this Grand Prix. And we are now getting closer within 1.5 seconds of Vettel until the safety car gets called out for Brendan Hartley now with only a couple laps to go in this Grand Prix, and that's due to an engine failure for the Kiwi man in the Toro Rosso Honda. So the Honda does fail the Toro Rosso car finally in this season, and so you can get the jokes out there for Honda, but to be fair, they've been performing so well as of late, so it was bound to happen eventually that they would have something go wrong, because they've been pretty bulletproof so far. But so yeah, under the safety car then, it's Vettel in first place, myself in second of course. Third place is Sergio Perez, the home favourite, and we're going to need to watch out for him on the race restart there with the cold tyres, and that Force India being an absolute rocket ship in a straight line might cause us some issues. But behind him then is Pierre Gasly, Kevin Magnussen, and then you've got Fernando Alonso, who managed to get past Ocon, Grosjean, and the two Red Bulls. The two Red Bulls really dropped off here in this last stage of the Grand Prix, so Alonso's done well actually to get that high up then into, I think, P6 that is. But on the race restart then, we go green after only one lap under the safety car, because of course I don't think it was a massive issue to get that car out of the way of the Toro Rosso. But here we go. What did I say? We need to be careful of Sergio Perez. So rather than attacking Vettel on the restart, I'm being attacked by the rocket ship of the Force India car on the outside. Perez goes to get up into second place. We come back at him though into turn one, literally wheel to wheel there. Our two sidewall wheels literally line up into turn one. We do get through and skate through into P2 and get that back. Perez though again attacks on the right hand side. That Force India car is literally something else in a straight line. I can't quite explain it. It's not even that great on the performance chart, but for some reason on track it is just so monstrous there. But we are going to keep that head in P2, and unfortunately for us, you can see that gap is already too large then to Sebastian Vettel with only 2 laps remaining. So Vettel is going to look likely to take home this race victory at the Mexican Grand Prix. To be fair though, I think he deserves it, because his strategy worked out amazingly with that huge undercut. But we've done a massive job today. P2 for us is going to be huge, because Fernando Alonso is down in, I think, P5 or P6. So a mega race for us at Mexico.
Good job, you did really well. Super driving.
Great effort there from Ferrari to take the victory today. So, Ant, how exactly did they set themselves apart from the pack today?
Without a doubt, the safety car changed everything today. The key to their success was keeping calm and reacting to the situation quickly. We've seen teams in the past throw away wins because they were too hesitant, but here they were decisive, and that's allowed them to take the advantage.
So, here they come now, out onto the podium. Wherever you go, anywhere in the world, the Prancing Horse flags are dominant in the grandstands, and they're out in force again today. It's Ferrari on the top step once more.
Indeed, Alonso finished in P6, so that alien pace he showed even throughout that Grand Prix was not enough to get him further up. Obviously, the safety car, in a way, helped us out also with Alonso, because it maybe nerfed his kind of momentum he had. He might have had momentum going forward to overtaking cars, lap after lap, but then the safety car comes out, the tyres go cold, you lose the kind of balancing rhythm you had in the Grand Prix, so maybe that helped out as well. But with that Grand Prix then, Perez actually moves up into third of the championship, so the Mexican at his home race does really well in the championship sake to get ahead of the two Red Bull cars. You can see now the gap is up to 21 points going to Brazil. That is a massive weight off for me, because I know how poor I have been in the past at Brazil, so that makes things a little bit easier going to Sao Paulo. But let's round out the episode then by going to Claire for the final interview of the episode.
Amazing performance out there. You must be really happy. You must be happy with the result today.
Obviously happy with the result. I'm going to go for the right-hand side answer. I thought that was actually a little bit cocky, maybe. It all came together, but it's actually quite sportsmanship, apparently, according to the game.
It's looking like a winner has emerged in the championship. Is it in the bag?
I found this question very odd because the championship definitely is not in the bag, so I'm going to say we have to fight 100% still.
That was a close finish. How are things between the two of you?
Obviously, Vettel's probably going to be my future teammate, so they're going to play that very sporting like there in that final question.
Great. Well, that's everything.
And so in the end, quite surprisingly, I answered quite sportsmanship to all three of those questions, even though I've been very showy with my answers as of late. But I found that second question so odd. Like, the game thinks it's all over. It most definitely is not. 21 points is nothing in the grand scheme of things, of if you factor in how fast Alonso has been over the last 5 episodes. Definitely not feeling great. And also, especially, look at this now. Both my MGKs are well over 65% worn. I'm going to have to categorically change at least minimum that one component of the MGK at Brazil, and maybe even the internal combustion engine. So we're going to have a tough old race next time at Brazil, so I'm very thankful we got this result at Mexico. And like I said, we need to do this to break that momentum of 3 wins on the trot. We broke it here at the Mexican Grand Prix, just like Rosberg v Hamilton in 2014. You know, you had little swings of 3 wins on the trot for Hamilton, 3 wins in the trot for Rosberg. We needed this at this point in the season. Very, very crucial. And guys, if you did enjoy that episode, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly full-on content. I've been Arava. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.